Hello there, we're going to be going through the Gates of Hell Ostfront American Doctrine for multiplayer, starting with the quad barrel half track. This thing is S. This thing is able to deal with infantry, light vehicles, and even tanks if you can get behind them and kill their engine, light a fire. This thing is extreme value with how cheap it is, spammable. These don't fall off. These will be good for the middle of the game, end of the game. They really are a good all-round unit, able to take out planes very well. One of the best AA vehicles as well. So S tier, just an all-around good unit, never falls off. I like this unit a lot. Next we have the mortar carrier. This comes with a 81mm mortar along with 4 times the normal ammo from an 81mm mortar. It also has a machine gun on the front. So it's actually kind of a compelling unit. I don't like call-in mortars very much, but this one actually is kind of interesting. You have Willy Pete and armor and mobility, sort of a perfect little combination there. I think it's super low A tier, maybe top B tier, but it is a compelling unit. If you like mortars, this is probably something that you should look into because it's pretty good. Next, we have the 75mm howitzer. This thing is unfortunately dog shit. There is an issue with this unit that it cannot shoot over any cover whatsoever. You'll find often this unit just will be not doing anything for most of its existence because any terrain features will make it not work. So this thing has no arc. I would say this unit is broken. Do not use it. It is broken. Next, we have the Heat Sherman. This thing's a little expensive. I wish this thing was 40. It's pretty good on urban maps, but it's going to go C because most of the maps and most of the tank fights are happening at 200 meters. So this thing will just be completely outclassed in that area. In city maps, you could push this into B quite comfortably, and you'll be able to get some value with it because the heat rounds are very good when they can be used. Next, we got the Arty Collins. I'm going to group these together here. First, I'm going to do the 241 actually. I don't like this one at all. This one is basically fires 4 Carl Gustav rounds, but the issue is that they all land in each other's footprints and then they don't spread out at all. So you kill, the first shot kills everything, and then the other 3 shots just land in the footprint and overkills everything. So I actually don't, I think this is pretty overrated. I think this is C. It's quite a spectacle watching the explosion, but I prefer the 155. I'm going to put that in B. It actually carpets a larger area and is more useful. This could potentially be used against medium and maybe heavy tanks to cause some significant damage, but I find it's very hard to push up enough to get close to call in on vehicles. So very niche. Fun to use once just to look at it, but overall I think it's C, and the normal Arty is B. Next we got the Priest. I think the Priest is my favorite Arty in the entire game. Probably, maybe the Calliope is better, but this is really good. This is A tier. It's got a lot going for it. It's got a 50 cal on top, so it can easily defend itself from light vehicles and infantry. It's incredibly armored. This thing from the front can not take on, but it'll take at least 4 or 5 Panzer IV shots to pen this thing and kill it. So crazy good armor for a RD. It also has some anti-tank capabilities with its heat rounds. It's not. I wouldn't suggest you use it for that because it's too expensive for what you get, but it is there if you need it. So A tier. Priest is a really good RD. Next we have the normal Pershing. I'm not a super big fan of the normal Pershing. I think it's pretty fairly valued, but overall, I think it's a B tier. Yeah, I think it's exactly what it should be for price to performance. You're able to tank. I would say you'll have about 65 win rate against Tigers and Panthers, and you'll have about a 30% win rate against King Tigers and that sort of German super heavy. So not a bad tank, but I think it's exactly where it deserves to be with its price. If it was 80 DP, then we could really start pushing it up. But because it's of what it is, I think B tier is fair. Next, we got the 155mm. This thing is absolutely horrible. This thing has 210 range, and it's gonna. So you're fighting super heavies with it. That's its design, but it's a one-hit kill. So you're paying 100 DP for a one-hit kill. And it's just absurd to do that. So I don't think this thing is viable. I think this thing needs a major buff. It does have HE. You can use it as like an artillery piece, but it's only got 4 reserve shells, so it's a complete ammo hog. You have to continually be resupplying it. So I don't like this thing at all. I think D tier is fair. I think it probably needs a buff. Next, we got the engineer truck. think this is also D tier. This is really bad. This needs like a bunch of infantry in it to make it viable. It does come with a 50 on top and some mines and other random assortment of engineering stuff, but it only comes with 2 engineers. This is like this should be maybe 10 DP, maybe 5, but 15 is way too expensive. Especially if you factor in opportunity cost, you're choosing this and you're not choosing something else. So I think D tier. This is not very good. Next we got the Bofus. I really like this thing. I think high B is fair. It does have a few problems. I'll go over those real quick. You only get a 3-man crew, and there's no shielding for them, so they are pretty liable to get shot. So you have to be very mindful. This thing needs to be played very passively, right in the back line. But it's crazy accurate and can easily pen light vehicles and even some light tanks if they're playing stupid. So this thing's great for locking down an area. I think it's a pretty good call-in. Next, we got the half track with an AT gun. Not a huge fan of this thing. It's sort of between the Puma, the long barrel Puma, and the short barrel Puma. It doesn't have the best accuracy, doesn't have the best muzzle velocity. Can be used as a field gun or sort of a budget field gun to take out infantry, but I'm not a huge fan of this. I think it's probably mid-level C. It just all the pieces don't really equate to a good unit. It just does not seem to perform where it needs to. So I think C is fair. Pretty inaccurate, and it can't pen Panzer IVs, so you're kind of stuck fighting light vehicles, and you're so light yourself that if you miss one shot, an autocannon will kill you. I'm not a huge fan of this unit. I wish it was a little better. Next, we got the 4.2-inch mortar. I think this mortar is just a pretty run-of-the-mill, so it's going B tier. I struggle finding the difference between any of the mortars because the smaller caliber ones have higher fire rate. So at the end of the day, I feel like they all perform pretty similarly. Next, we have the 90 millimeter anti-tank gun. This thing is horrible. This thing is really bad. If you see my other tier list, I rank a lot of the flak cannons at about C. This thing is especially bad because it's got a lot of glitches. It's slow to set up and it's slow to pack up. You'll find this thing flips over on terrain, and this thing is just one of the buggiest units in the game. It is priced fairly fair, like 55 for what you're getting is a fair price, but you'll very much struggle to get any value with this. As soon as the enemy sees that you have it, it's going to be a magnet for arty. I mean, it's very difficult to keep alive. I don't like this thing at all. I think it's D tier. Next, we have the field gun half track, and I like this thing way more than the anti-tank version. This thing's pretty nice. It's pretty good at counter battering other field guns. It's pretty good at counter battering arty if you're a little more aggressive, and it's great at killing guys in foxholes. I think this is probably low B. This thing can serve you well. It is a little expensive, but not too much so. It's pretty good. It's a solid low B. I think is fair. Next, we have the 90 millimeter Sherman. This thing's interesting. It's got it's basically a Sherman hull with a tank destroyer turret, and it's priced fairly fair. It's pretty fair. I think it's probably mid B. If you sort of compare it to a Pershing, how much you're saving, you'll be able to kill Panzer IVs with this easy. You'll win 80% of the time, and then you'll have a 40% win against Tigers and the Panthers, maybe a little lower, maybe 35% win. And then I wouldn't go against super heavies with this, but you probably could, and you'll probably have a 15 to 20% win rate with it. So a compelling unit. Just be careful. It is nice having the extra armor on the hull, but the turret is still very vulnerable. This is not a tanky turret whatsoever. I'm going to group all these Toad Arty together. If you haven't seen my other tier list, I do not like Toad Arty. I think it's very difficult to get value from. It's also super easy to be killed, and they're too expensive, and they cost too much CP. There's a huge host of problems with them. I really don't think any of the Toad Arty are viable at all. In big team games, I think they do. You can make a case that they're okay, but for anything smaller, 2v2 or 1v1, I think these are D tier. 3v3, you could say it's C, and maybe in a 4v4, you could say it's B tier, but I don't like the Toad Arties in general. Next, we got the 250 pound bomb. It's going S plus. These bombs are amazing, so versatile. You can destroy emplacements. This thing can destroy a Tiger pretty consistently. If you track a Tiger and drop this 10 DP on its engine, there's about a 65% chance it's going to start a fire. So if you think about, it's just straight alchemy. You spend 10 DP and you kill something that's up to 90 DP. So this thing's crazy. Really hard not to get value from it. I like the bombers a lot. Next, we got the 75mm pack from the Irregular Doctrine. I think this thing's solid. I think this thing's probably like almost high A, mid A sort of thing. The reason it's so good is you get it so early. It's a capable field gun that can shoot over cover, and it's zippy. You can pack it up and move it real quick. The Jeep it comes in it seems to not care that this thing is on it at all, so you can reposition. I really like these field guns from the Irregular Doctrine because they're so zippy and things are constantly changing. You need to be these static guns don't respond well to changing circumstances, but these small ones do. So I like these a lot. That's why it's A tier. Next, we got the red ball ammo trucks. These are interesting if you are a heavy arty player. They'd probably be a lot higher. If you're unfamiliar, it's basically the equivalent of 4 ammo trucks. And then these ammo trucks also come with 50s. If you're a arty player, it's probably low B, and if you're not, this is a straight D. So I'll probably split the difference and say it's low C for me. Yeah, it's if you need a lot of ammo, then it's a compelling choice. But other than that, I'm not a big fan of this. We have the Flame Sherman. This thing's sort of interesting. It's pretty good value. I would consider 35 for just a normal Sherman, not horrible. So you're getting a flamethrower on that, and that does bring it to pretty good value. I think this thing is super low B, probably high C, somewhere in there. Um, pretty weak Sherman, but you get it early, and the flamethrower is super short, so that's an issue. You're going to be definitely in Panzerfaust range. So that is a big issue, but it's good for how cheap it is, and it still has its main gun, so you can still use it as a Sherman. So just sort of keep the flame as a it's just a bonus. Think of it as a Sherman first and a flame second. So and just be safe with it. Next, we have the Special Ops Commandos. These guys are juiced out. This is like the definition of power creep. If you look at the other special forces from the other factions, they don't compete with these guys at all. These guys have a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people know this, but they actually have a arty signaler call-in guy. It's only 2 rounds, but it's a okay arty. I mean, it's just if you're factoring into the price, what would you pay for a 2-shot arty? You get a medic, you get two bazookas. I'm pretty sure, 12 men total, like 30 of each kind of grenade, 21 mines or something like that. Like this is a lot of value here. If you can't get 25 DP from these guys, then you need to not be watching tier lists. It doesn't matter. These are pretty good. These are probably low B or B. They aren't extremely skill intensive. Like you could easily waste this if you're just being stupid, but if you're smart and use these guys well, you'll be able to get that value. I promise you. Next, we got the big brother of this pack here. I like this thing. I'm starting to not like it as much as this one, just because of the price. But this is a good counter to field guns. If the enemy brings a normal field gun, you'll be able to outrange this thing. It is pretty zippy, just like its little brother. I think this thing's going low B tier, just because I find the higher explosives TNT is not needed against my targets. Usually people are not clustering up, so it doesn't matter. The 75 mil is going to kill them just as easy as a 105 will. But this is good at killing enemy field guns, and if you want to get brave, you could easily push up and counter a battery heavy arty as well. But it's okay. I think low B is fair. Next, we got the 500-pound bomb. I think this is going into A tier. I think I actually put the other ones in S tier, but I'm not sure. Either way, you could say it's either. 500 bomb is great. Insta kills almost 100% of the time any super heavy tanks, and will kill every other tank. Just track them, engine them, or decrew them. This heavy bomber is really good. Next, we got the 4.5 inch gun. Again, another heavy arty that I don't think justifies its existence. Very sluggish. I'm not a big fan of these. But I am a fan of this next unit. This is the Calliope. I think this is maybe other than the priest in this, you could definitely have a conversation of what is the best. I think I'm going to put it right beside it, probably over it, maybe even towards the top of A tier here. The reason this is so good is because it has really good payload, and it has payload that's cut in two, so you get two salvos. So instead of overkilling your first shot, you just fire all your 40 rockets or 30 or whatever it is. That area is completely dead, and then you reposition and fire another 30 or 40 rockets, and it's just able to do a lot of damage. It's pretty high diameter rockets, so that they explode quite well. Another positive is that it's a Sherman, so it can defend itself against light vehicles and other. It can fight a Panzer IV quite comfortably, and then it's also pretty much immune to counter battery fire unless you're being completely negligent. So a great unit. Definitely A. You could make a case it's S. I would be happy to accept anyone that thought it was S. Um, I would say one issue is the 60 CP that it is. So you're using like more than 25% of your army is in this one unit. So you have to be aware that you're probably not going to be able to have other big tanks. You'll need lots more infantry to cover, and it does create some problems in that sense. But if you're just looking for one of the best RD pieces, I mean, this is definitely in the conversation. We have the command car next. This is S+, 200-meter range in front of you, a vision in quite a large arc. I would pay probably 20 DP for this and be quite happy. These things are overpowered. If you're unfamiliar with how important vision is, then you're not playing correctly, and it's absolutely so easy to counter everything if you know what the enemy has. So really important. You won't be able to get snuck up on as easy. It's so good. It's S plus tier. You should be using command cars. Next we got the this is a flak cannon with two 50 cals on either side. This thing's pretty good, especially for how cheap it is. The Germans have an equivalent one. It's a 3-barrel flak vehicle, and that's 30. I would say they're pretty comparable. I think this is probably mid A for how cheap it is. You could compare it directly with the quad 50. Basically, you're just paying double for a little bit more pen on armored vehicles. A good vehicle. I would say that it does fall off quickly. I wouldn't buy this in mid or late game, unlike this one, the quad barrel, because it's so cheap. This one is 20 DP in the early game. That's fine. You can buy that and you'll have fun. But late game, I just use this. You don't need the extra 20 DP. Next, we got the 75 millimeter Stuart with a assault gun. This thing's pretty interesting. It's able to tangle with Panzer IVs in any kind of urban environment, or if you can shoot over cover. It's also a fairly good assault gun, and it has a 50 on cop, so you're getting quite a lot of value for 30 DP. It's also pretty zippy too. It's a small silhouette, so it's hard to hit. The one issue with this thing is that it's crazy and accurate, and the muzzle velocity is horrible. So you'll have to practice to get good shots off, and you'll really need to make sure you're not overexposing yourself when you're fighting in urban environments. But this thing's pretty good. I think this thing could be said to be low A, high B. Just be careful. It is a high skill unit, but it's good. It can take out tanks way bigger than it. I'd compare it quite a bit to the short barrel Puma on the German side. Next, we got the Hellcat. I have to be careful. This is my personal favorite unit, so I'll need to be extra critical to make sure that it's being placed fairly. I'll go over the negatives first. The turret on this vehicle is the armor on it is non-existent. You can be easily countered by German autocannons, especially the German scout car is a hard counter to this, and it's half the price, so you need to be very careful with engaging any kind of flak or autocannons because you will lose. It also seems to be a magnet for a Panzerfaust. I'm not sure if that's a game code issue or whatever, but this thing seems to just take Panzerfaust hits very easily. For the good, it's the fastest tank in the game, great acceleration, respectable cannon. This thing will kill super heavies if you're sneaky, very sneaky, but super high skill cap. I think this is probably a very tippy top of A. Really good tank, super fun, but it does have some downsides. I could see putting it higher if you're especially good with it. I think for me personally, I would put it S, like if it was for me, but I'm making this as just a generic tier list for everyone. So probably it's high A, a lot of skill cap, but it's very good. Next, we got the airburst artillery. I don't see a huge difference between the normal artillery and these. I've done some tests, and I think it's more of a cool rule of cool. Maybe they do units in foxholes they are a little more effective on, but in general, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think I'm going to place them basically exactly the same as I did the other arty. Speaking of which, I don't like the 8-inch compared to the normal one. I think it suffers from the same problem as the 240, as in the explosions are too centralized and you're just overkilling whatever you're shooting, and I prefer it to be spread out. So I'm going to put that there in C, and then it's a 155 airburst right next to the other one, because honestly I don't think there's a big difference here. Next we got the M4A3 with the 76. This thing's good. If you're looking for just a main battle tank, this is probably it. Very similar to the Hellcat. Well, not really, but let me finish that thought. same gun, um, sort of you're paying for less armor but more speed for this, and then more armor, and you're paying a little more DP for this. So I find these units very similar, but in a different sort of way. They they sort of work the same. This one's just a bit slower, but you can, with the same gun, you have to kind of compare them a little bit. So I like this tank. I think high A is good. It's right around the Hellcat viability for how inexpensive it is. I like it a lot. I think it's good. Next, we got the 155 from the regular. I think I do like the two smaller guns, but this one's starting to become a little too pricey for me, so I think it's going to go down with his brothers. Next, we got the Super Pershing. I think the Super Pershing could be potentially the best value super heavy in the game. I don't like it myself because I don't think it's a cool looking tank, but it is pretty indestructible from the front. It doesn't have any glaring weak points. Even the weak points that it says the game says it has are unexploitable. It says there's a weak point in the machine gun turret on the hull, but I've done pretty extensive testing, and I don't actually think that's a real. I think that's a either there's just something wrong, or yeah, I can't seem to pen that even from close range with big guns. So yeah, I think this is probably mid A for super heavies. I'm not a huge fan of super heavies, but for the CP price, you're not paying nearly as much as you are for King Tigers and stuff like that. So I do like I do like the Super Pershing, just how tanky it is. It's a pretty good unit, even though I don't personally like using it just because of the rule of cool. But it is good. It is probably the best super heavy for the price. So that's just my opinion. Um, you know, everyone has their pet tank, so don't be offended. That's just my opinion. And this is my US tier list. I hope you enjoyed. Goodbye. I'm gonna go eat some spaghetti.